Hello, I'm Jonathan Ashworth, former Labour politician, now a podcaster. But throughout my time in Parliament, I always championed the cause of children of alcoholics. I know how healing it can be to find a fellow thread of fellow feeling. I know how painful it can be to feel alone. And through these conversations, I want to shine a light on experiences too often kept in the shadows. Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of COA Lives with me, Jonathan Ashworth. And our guest this week is a TV personality, a patron of the National Association of Children of Alcoholics charity, Nacoa, a man who knows a lot about football and involved with his own side at Dorking, an entrepreneur as well, and also the son of one of the greatest footballers of all time. But I'm absolutely delighted to have with me on the podcast, the Children of Alcoholics podcast this week, the great Calum Best.
Why am I blushing by your intro? It's not often, but I was like, go on, my friend. It's a pleasure, my friend. It's a pleasure. I was actually excited. I thought no better man for the job than you to lead this Nacoa podcast idea. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, well, we're absolutely delighted to have you on the podcast, Calum, and we've been friends now for about, since I got involved in Nacoa, 6 or 7 years ago, and we've known each other since then, and we've been together campaigning on this cause that we're both absolutely passionate about. Yeah. And it's always an honour to speak with you on the platforms at Nacoa and to hear your story and for you to listen to my story. But this is really an opportunity to talk about our stories and talk about why we're so committed to this campaign. And I was very keen in the introduction to emphasise all of your accomplishments because you are a successful business figure. You're a successful TV personality. You do the stuff with Dorking FC down there in Surrey. But obviously, you have an incredibly famous father. Incredibly famous.
Yeah.
And there'll be listeners who will know far more about his accomplishments at Man United, about every single goal he scored. But just for those who might not be football fans, your dad was George Best.
Yeah.
The man who came from Belfast as a boy, as a sort of teenager, signed for Man United.
Yeah.
Because of the way it worked in them days, because he came from Northern Ireland and Belfast, he had to also work on the Manchester Ship Canal when he was doing his early training. Got into that side in, 1967, 1968?
Yeah.
This is 10 years after Man United had famously lost so many of its players in a devastating plane crash in Munich 10 years earlier.
Yeah.
A new team was built by Matt Busby. Great players, Bobby Charlton. He survived the plane crash famously. But George Best was signed for Man United, and he was part of that magical Man United side.
Incredible.
That won the European Cup, the first English team.
1968.
When they played at Wembley. Benfica, I think your dad scores in that game. So, I mean, what a guy.
I know.
And what a guy.
Do you know what? Sorry.
What is like growing up?
Yeah.
Knowing that your dad is loved, revered by so many, that he is one of the greatest of all time on the pitch.
A lot of people may not get this, but I thought you might understand this one. How crazy is it? Sometimes I believe in like the connections from way back to now, whatever you want to call it, 6 degrees of separation or whatever it might be. The Munich air disaster was the same date as my birthday. Isn't that crazy? February 6th was when the Munich air disaster happened at United, and then I was born on February 6th. It means nothing in the big picture, but I always find these little things that are in there sometimes going, I have this other connection besides my dad playing. There was something that happened there and that tied me to that. It all just sometimes really blows my mind, all the kind of little idiosyncrasies that all come together. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
Isn't it pretty cool? But the bestie thing, it's brilliant, mate. That it's a podcast in itself, a series in itself of the stories I could explain of the background of being my father's son and being very proud of it. But the big picture right now is I'm a proud son I sing it from the rooftops. I try to, how do I say, represent it the best I can, while also tackling the kind of darker side that came with it. There's some beautiful stories, there's some proud stories, and those are the ones I kind of live with on a daily, because it's pretty much on a daily basis. Someone's like, "Oi, Bestie's kid," or "Oh, I got a story about Bestie the black cab on the way over here." It's like, "Hey, I got this story. I picked your dad up on Cheney Walk in 20 years ago, and he was such a good man." And mate, no word of a lie, it happens every day, you know?
Yeah.
So it's pretty incredible that happens. But then there's moments like this where I know I'm coming in to talk to my patron charity, which I've done many a time, about, you know, the amazing the amazing fact that we get to represent what we're representing. You know, I'm very grateful, actually, no matter what the trials and tribulations of having an alcoholic parent are. I spoke to someone the other day about how I wouldn't change a lot of things for the world because it's ended me up in a position like this. And I am so grateful to be in this position, to be able to speak up, speak out, kind of speak for people that might not be able to speak, you know? I know I go off on tangents on this one, but I wanted to touch. The other day, I was speaking to our run coach, and I think you know why we have a run coach, but I was speaking to our run coach, and he was asking me, what is my why for accepting my next challenge, right? And my why was, you know, the fact that I get to be able to do what I'm doing and with the platform that I have to be able to represent people that might not be able to represent themselves, right? And then I thought, we're doing this challenge, and the idea is chasing yesterday. So we're going back in time to speak to our younger self or change something about our younger self. And then I started thinking, you know, I wouldn't want to change anything. I actually wouldn't want to change a thing, because it's got me to a position that I'm in today that I thrive in, that I love. And it's like, you sometimes think, you know, what are you doing to represent the people that can't speak for themselves? Do they want to change anything? Do you want to change anything? Why do you want to go back in time and have a word with your younger self? Or what would you change about your relationship with your parent that was drinking too much? And the crazy part is, I was like, wow, I wouldn't actually change anything. It was the path that it was meant to be to lead me to where I am now.
I mean, that's so interesting. And that's a theme about coming through a lot of the podcasts we've been doing in the series. We want to talk about you and want to talk about that. But I've just got to say this before we get into that my dad idolised your dad. He's about 5 years younger than your dad. My dad was born in 1949 in Salford. I think your dad, was your dad, he's a bit old, he's about 4 or 5 years older than that. Yeah, I think. My dad was a big Man United fan. My dad literally modelled himself on your dad.
Love it.
Right?
Yeah.
The beard, the longish dark hair, there is a bit of Irish blood in us in our background, so is that such a similar look. But I mean, put two photos of them together. Yeah, they're so similar. My dad worked in casinos in Manchester. Yeah, because your dad was. I mean, you know, he had clubs in Manchester. Yeah. He used to gamble, I think, in a casino called Soames's.
And there was another place called Slack Alice's. Always came up. There was this place where they all went and partied called Slack Alice's.
Yeah, and I'm sure. I mean, my dad would have been drinking, and he worked in the Playboy Club in Manchester. My dad, and he would have been drinking in these places. My mum was a bunny girl from the Manchester Playboy Club. I think your mum was a
bunny girl,
as well. Yeah, at some point. In fact, my auntie Brenda claims that she used to drink in pubs round Deansgate in Manchester, and
Bestie used to be in them.
Yeah, and she claims that he at least gave her a peck on the cheek.
Love it, love it.
So
I wouldn't doubt it, brother, for 1 second. I wouldn't doubt it for 1 second.
So I've always thought between us, there's this, you talk about those connections, these degrees of separation. Yeah. You know, I think there's it's the same, that spooky connection is there. And equally, my dad, like your dad, loved a drink. They were both, I suspect, life and souls of the party. Both probably very good with with women, all of that stuff. Yeah. But we're both only child as well. We're both only children. But we were the kids who were dealing with it. Yeah. So we saw our dads as these great personalities who everybody loved when they walked into the room. Yeah. But we're the guys dealing with it. But we also know that they loved us. And I thought, I went back, funnily enough, and read one of the old books I had before, and it's your dad's autobiography. And he's got this passage in there towards the end where he says, and you must be about 17 or 18 by this point. He says, here I am, I'm lying in bed, Calum's been out till 3 a.m. and I'm worrying about where he is, and I'm thinking, hang on a minute.
Yeah. I did that for years.
Yeah.
I do that right up till,
Yeah. And I thought it was a really funny passage, because your dad was very funny.
Yeah.
He was very naturally very witty, wasn't he? But it's also like, I think that it also encapsulates how much love he had for you.
Yeah.
And that love was always there for you when you were growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you know it and you got to believe it. And because you think, what parent wouldn't? You know what I mean? It's a really tricky one when you have these conversations sometimes as an adult for someone else to understand the point you're trying to get across. Because it's like, oh, fucking poor you, woe you, And it's like there's such a bigger reason for telling stories or explaining these things, because there's a purpose behind what Nacoa is, and it is strictly about helping children. It's not even sometimes talking about not if I could not tell stories about the shit that happened, I would probably not. Just if I could go straight direct to a kid without having to explain the traumas and the crap and all the things you went through as a child of an alcoholic, and got your point across without doing that, it'd be a dream. But the reality is that in order for some kids to understand that they're not alone, that the story you're telling them is something for sure that they've probably been through as well, because there's a lot of similarities between the similarities we just spoke of, that were all quite upbeat. Incredible that they used to be the life of the party. Incredible that they used to love a drink. Incredible that they probably love flirting with girls. That's just part of human nature, and I think it's brilliant. But then there's a flip side that not many people see. The people that see him the life of the party don't experience the dark side. The people that know he can flirt don't experience the dark side. And there's a real catch there, because some of these kids are by themselves in a situation that nobody else will understand. And when you get people together like you and I and the rest of the people that you've probably spoke to on this panel, they have been through it as well. So there's this unique thing of coming together to say, okay, we've all lived through something, and some of us, it took a long time to be able to share it and speak about it. But now, if you can share it and speak about it with a greater good and a purpose of helping the children of alcoholics that might not quite yet understand it. And also, the other day when I was telling this guy about why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I thought to myself, wow, I actually wouldn't change anything. God, there's obviously some shit that you go through that you wish didn't happen. There's some stories I've never even spoke to anybody about that I'll take to my grave because they're quite shit, right? Sorry to swear so much. There's some stories that I would take to my grave because they are quite really uncomfortable. But I'm like, I wouldn't change it because I like this life now. I like what I've created. And I think that if a kid can battle through by themselves and make it, it's quite a rare thing. If they have some support along the way, they've got a way better chance of seeing the brighter side of the ending of that story,
And when you were growing up, because I think you were in LA.
Yeah.
How did you split? Were you LA and I thought your dad was was he in London at that point, or was he still in Manchester?
Yeah, there was a quite a cool time back, I think 1978, 79, all these iconic legendary players like Pele, Beckenbauer, Cruyff, my dad, they all went over to the States because they started the NASL, the North American Soccer League. This was before, it was the first time they'd try to give it a go in America. And they had teams like the LA Aztecs, the San Jose Earthquakes, the San Diego Surf, all these kind of cool, funny names. And all these guys went over there to play. And at the time, Elton John was the chairman of the LA Aztecs. So he took he took my dad over to California to play a few years. And they made a big fuss, and it went down really well. Then my dad went to a team called the San Jose Earthquakes in Northern California near San Francisco, where I was born. That's why I sound like such a Yank. I was born in California near San Francisco. And then when I was born, my parents split, and my mom raised me there. So I spent my whole youth in California, hence why I sound the way I do. But, when I started hitting, young teens, maybe even younger than that, I would go on little trips over to spend time with my dad and back and forth to build a relationship with him. And you start to see quite early on what's going on and what that person's life's about, and sadly, you knew the love was there, you knew the care was there, but my dad was full blown into his drinking by the time I started to hang out with him, so it's, for every, I've said this before, but for every kind of memory of brilliance, there's this counter to it, sadly, that is like, oh shit. Like I can laugh about this now, but I remember I came over, I was probably about like 13. Yeah, I was probably about 13. I was real young. There's a picture of it because the press got this picture. But my dad's like, we're going to go play some football in the park. But it was a set-up photo shoot, yeah? So we've gone to the park. He's like, put the Man United jersey on. We've done some running for like 10 minutes. Some photos were taken, and he's left with a brown paper bag full of cash. And I remember thinking, he's taking me to the park to play football, but he's done it so he could take some photos to make some cash.
Oh, so he sold it like
yeah,
a paparazzi.
so there was no authenticity in it, you know? But it was still, I look back and go, beautiful moment. And I have a picture of the moment, but it's tainted because I'm like, he's gone, let's go to the park. Because back then, the press, that's how it used to, I mean, for a long time, the press used to just do brown paper bags full of cash to people to get what they needed to get. And I remember him leaving with a brown, and I'm like, good man. But with that cash, he's like, yeah, son, go buy some shoes. And I'm like, yeah, fuck it, it all works out. You know what I mean? So it wasn't a real kickabout, it was a setup kickabout, but it still was a kickabout is how I look at it now. You know?
Well, it's also presumably taught you a lesson because you're a personality in your own right, TV personality. Your press are interested in you.
Totally.
Shows you how these things work.
Yeah.
It's taught you a lesson there about how to operate, I suppose.
Yeah.
And
I wish I could get brown paper bags full of cash nowadays.
It's a different world now.
It's quite rare.
It's a different world now.
It's quite rare.
Yeah, but I mean, you must have. I mean, I think you told a story when we spoke at the Nacoa event, a couple of months ago in Parliament, and where you were playing pool or something in the pub that you were drinking in Chelsea.
Yeah.
And I think he does talk about this story in his book as well.
Really?
I think he does.
Oh God, I haven't read that book, so I don't know.
Is there a story about some guys were angry that he'd beaten them at pool or something?
Yeah. And they pulled up and they came in and beat everybody up. I'll share it with you because I don't think many people. And I actually didn't share that story. And I'll tell you why. So when I did a book many, many years ago, I'm talking 2007 or something, I did a book called Second Best. And if you look at it now, and I look at it now, it does look like a bit of a sob story. The picture is like a little baby me at the front with my dad, and the title is Second Best, and it does scream, poor me.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I felt that way, and I lived that way until I switched out of that, changed my mindset. No, screw that shit. I got to make things happen. I can't live in this victim mindset. It's never going to work out. It's not a healthy place to be. But for a while, when I lost my old man, that's how I felt. I was like, God damn it. You know what I mean? Like, this is my everything, besides my mom, obviously, who I love to bits. This was my everything, my focus, my goal, my reason for moving here. Everything was gone. So I was just like, you know what? Screw the world. Let's just not give a shit. And I felt that way for a long time. I sometimes wonder why I felt that way. I wish I hadn't, because I see sometimes everybody's got their own path, their own journey, but I see sometimes people that lose people and straight away they'll go into a rebuild or a positive mindset. But it's more so now than ever. I think it might have been the era that we lived in. It wasn't much about minds. There was no talk about mindset. There was no talk about training or the diet you're on. None of those things that can contribute to a healthier, happy life. It was just, at the time, I was drinking and doing drugs, and it wasn't really about what can I do to be better. It was like, wallow in self-pity,
Yeah.
God, what was I saying there?
About the snooker, the
pool.
pool.
Yeah, so I didn't share that story, and there's a lot of stories I've not shared, because when I did used to share them when I was younger, I got slated for them, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I did my book, and I was exhausted. I'd put 2 years into this thing, but I was happy I did it because I got a lot of shit off my chest. And instead of people for 6 or 7 years before this book, people were assuming what I was like. It was written out no word of a lie for years and years and years. Most days, at the beginning, it was lovely. For the first 3 years I was here, it was beautiful. And then it turned sour and sour and got worse and worse and worse. And to a point where it beat me down pretty bad. The press, I mean. So I released this book, and it was like sports writers going, how dare he criticize his father?
Because your dad's such a legend, isn't he?
Well, and that's why it's so difficult but it's okay, but it's so difficult sometimes for anybody to explain the woes of what their parent are going through, because you don't want to be judged or criticized or misunderstood or whatever it might be. And I remember I did this thing, and I didn't even tell the worst of it, but I got these things out, and I was just slaughtered. The people with compassion, the people with understanding, the people that actually understand addiction and what it's like in the family got it, and they were like, good on you for getting something that helps you be a better person. Anyway, so I was slaughtered, so much so that I was like, oh God, this killed me. I was slaughtered by my dad's family. I was slaughtered by the sports critics, the writers, yada, yada, yada.
Your dad's sisters, are they still around?
Yeah, they're still around. But I just remember like, and I don't want to speak bad now because it's so many years later, but there was a lot of doubt about my truths, right? And I was like, how are you going to think that that I'm making something up, you know? This is what I went through. This is how I feel. Anyway, so all those things came out, and it stopped me from then speaking on it for a long time until I kind of teamed up with Nacoa a bit more. And I saw that when I did, it had a purpose, it had an end goal, it had an outcome, and that was supporting the children, you know, and seeing the return of the people that understood it going, this is good, this is healthy, this is positive. Because this conversation sometimes can feel down, could feel unhealthy. Anyway, so I digress back to the story. I was probably about 15. And he raised me when I would come visit in the Feeney. And the Feeney was off Oakley Street on the King's Road. King's Road, Oakley Street, and then tucked away was this little pub called the Feeney. And I remember it being so dire at the time. It was like these sticky carpets, like a real old school dire pub. And my dad used to love sitting in there and playing cribbage. The plus side was he taught me how to play cribbage. He taught me how to play cards. I learned about wines. I learned about brandy at like 14, 15 years old, you know? So there's some great memories I have in there. But the downside was when I would come visit, he'd be in this place from 8 o'clock in the morning as soon as he woke up till bedtime, right? Every single day that was his local. So if I wanted to hang out with him, I'd have to go there. So one day, some random day, I'm over for a few weeks visit, and I go in to see him. It's probably like 11 or 12, and he's with this Irish guy, this hard-looking Irishman. Like, you can tell by looking at him that this guy's trouble, yeah? Say you too, and I'm like, oh shit, yeah, here we go. Excuse me for my horrible Irish accent, but I can do it, I swear. So he goes, Bestie, we're going to go play pool at the Rat and Parrot. That was another place around the corner, which I had very fond memories of because I learned how to play pool in there with my dad, which I love to this day. I met some beautiful girls in my youth when I was in there. I had some great times on my holidays because I'd come over from California to this lifestyle that I didn't know in England, drinking in the pub, playing pool, meeting English girls. It was great. And I was like this long...
Very different to the LA lifestyle, surely.
Oh, completely. It was actually a lot naughtier. I mean, I was naughty in California, but this was a different kind of thing. There was a lot more freedom because I didn't have my mom around. You know what I mean? So we've gone over to the Rat and Carrot pub, the Rat and Parrot, Rat and Carrot. We're playing pool. My dad's had a few drinks, and I've noticed that when he wanted to take it to the next level, it would move to the brandies. He usually drank dry white wine with ice, right? And when the brandies came on, you're like, oh shit, here we go, you know? So him and his Irish fella, you could see it. They're starting to go. And this lad comes in, and obviously older than me. I was, I don't know, a young teen, 13 maybe. And this guy comes in, probably in his 20s, and they all start playing pool together, and there's an animosity building, so much so that they're starting to insult each other. So finally, this Irish guy, he's pissed. He's a hard man. He's taken this guy outside into the street, and he's beat him up, right? Beat him up. And I'm like this young kid, but I'm watching, and I'm like enjoying it. I'm so weird that I remember enjoying this moment. So they beat this guy up, and my dad and the Irishman walk back down to go back to the Feeney, which is around the corner. And I stay there, and I'm talking to this guy, and I'm almost like, from a distance, enjoying it, like the fact that he's just been beat up by my buddies, by my dad and his buddy. So he's like, yo, fuck off. He says what he says to me. So I leave, and I go back to the pub, and my dad's there, and he's sitting there drinking, and they're both. You can see. I don't know about you, if you remember the expressions of when your parent or someone, you know, you either got lifted or you go darkening, and he was dark, and it was moody, and it was like, oh shit, right? So I've gone into the toilet, and I'm standing there, and I'm using the loo. And all of a sudden I hear this big old kerfuffle behind me. And I'm like, so I run out, and this guy who's got beat up by my dad's Irish friend has pulled up in a white van with all of his mates, probably like 6 of them. They've jumped out, they've run in through the front door, and this had a square bar in the middle of it, and there was a pathway that went all the way around the bar. So they've come in, knocked some guy out, knocked 2 other people out, and they've reached the table with my dad. So I've run in, all of a sudden I got a bar stool to my head, and next thing you know, I'm like back to back with my old man, and we're like throwing punches. I'm just throwing random punches. I'm like 13. I'm 13, and I'm just throwing these punches. And then all of a sudden, the Irish guy's laid out, and I'm hit, and everyone's hit, and then these guys run back out, and they've just left this disaster of a pub behind them. Glasses broke, tables over, benches over. Oh, and I just remember thinking, oh, wow, what a thing to go through at 13 years old. And then the best part was, which this is really unhealthy, but I'm going to share it anyway, is that we sit outside and all these people that are beat up and battered are like gathering their senses, and the police have been called. And the police come, and I remember they're like, police are going around interviewing people, and I'm sitting on this bench, and like my dad is in the hallway or the doorway of the pub, and the police come to me and they're like, excuse me. And I like look at my dad, and he was like, and so I was like, I don't know. I don't know what happened. Yeah, it taught me, wait, son, we're old school Irish. This is how this goes. And from that day on, I went, yep, no fucking problem. And that stuck with me for life.
I mean, what a story. What an absolutely extraordinary story. I mean, these are memories which, as you say, will stick with you for life.
Yeah. Traumatic ones.
Yeah,
but
they are
still quite funny when you look back on this.
Yeah, it's good that you can laugh about this stuff now.
Yeah, for sure.
Years after the event. I mean, I wonder whether, though, because I re-looked at the book, and it reminded me, which I'd totally forgotten, is that your dad's mum had died of alcohol. And there's a really interesting passage in the book, a very honest passage that your dad's written, where he says, look, it's not like somebody wakes up in the morning and says, oh, I want to be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
It's a disease.
Yeah.
And I just wondered, did you ever have that conversation with him? I mean, I tried to have that conversation with my own dad, and my own dad would say to me, I'm not an alcoholic, I can go to work, I can still go to the casino and work. And that's true, he could go to the casino and be the pit boss in a casino. Problem is, it's on these days off. He was just drinking dry white wine. Another, following your dad.
Yeah, another.
Did you ever have that type of conversation with him?
No, there was never an in-depth. There was a moment where he had his liver transplant, and we were in the hospital. And I've shared this before, but in short, it was like the first time I'd looked and believed that the change was coming, you know? Like there was a positive outcome to a shit situation. And, but it didn't, because like you said, I believe, and some people disagree with this, that it is an illness. That at some point there isn't a choice, you know? But it's really tough to accept that, because you go, all right, I can choose to go to that pub right now and have a beer or not, you know? I can choose what I want throughout my day, but sometimes I believe that this illness becomes so strong that it isn't really a choice anymore. I remember times where I would try to have conversations with my dad about the drink or about choices that were made about us, and it got shut down. And I believe it got shut down because it's your brain, or an addict's brain, saying to him, like, this person's not on your side. That conversation is not for the greater good. Come over here with me and we'll deal with it this way, you know? And I remember my mom telling me that as well. My mom believed that, you know, during the times of what happens for an alcoholic, like you can imagine during the madness of all the drinking, all the shit that you do. You know, I've made some fucking mistakes for lifetimes when I was drinking or when I was on the sesh, or there was a long period of time where I lived that, and not to that extreme, obviously, but my mom believed that the drink would keep going every day because you didn't want to face the mistakes or the things that you'd done bad over the years, you know? And respectfully, I'm not talking about my dad, but it could be that you weren't around as a father. It could be that you screwed somebody over. It could be that you made some stupid mistakes. And to avoid those confrontations or to face those realities, you would continue the drinking. And I think most times it's like you start off soft, you have a couple, then all of a sudden, you know, a few years go by, now it becomes a normal lifestyle, and then all of a sudden it's like a daily routine. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can't live without this shit, you know? So I think there is an age-old thing of, is it an illness or is it just a fucking choice? And I'm like, nah, that is an illness, because I've seen what it does to people. It makes people ill. Yeah. You know?
I think there's another debate is it something that's in your genes?
Yeah.
Is it like, you know, if it impacted your dad's mum? I always think about my family. I've never met this guy, but there's always like a story in my family about we had a great uncle who literally died on the steps waiting for the pub to open.
Wow.
You know, because he was such a big drinker. And there's always a part of me in my head who just wonders, is this something that's in your DNA?
Yeah.
And you just mentioned there that you at times had excessive periods.
Yeah.
So at what point did you think, actually, this is getting out of hand, I'm going to have to, you know, change my lifestyle here?
I think that it is genetic, you know? I think there's a lot higher chance of somebody who's got addiction in their family to be an addict themselves, without a doubt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I believe anyway. But I also believe, and this might sound silly, but it's what I've learned over the years is that it's from a certain era that people grew up in, that it's only now, like let's just say I've broken something, not to sound too deep, but it's true. Like if my dad's mom was an alcoholic and my dad was an alcoholic, there's a chance I could have been alcoholic. Why not, you know? But I only think it's now at a time that we're in that people are more open to understanding. Like my old man would have never sat here and had the conversation about this shit, you know? It was a real old school mentality in his time. It was a real old school mentality in the time before him. There was no hugs, there was no talking about how you feel. And actually to this day, I actually think that's okay, because there's a lot of shit that will make us strong individuals that we have to deal with ourselves and make happen ourselves and confront ourselves. But more than ever before, now is a great time where I can sit here and have this conversation with you. I don't think your dad and my dad would have probably had a conversation about the struggles of having fucking alcohol in the family. They would have been like, shut up and have a drink. And a lot of times now there's still a talk.
They'd have had a great party.
Yeah. Mate, I'm a bit jealous because I wish I could do that right now. But there's still a lot of toxic, I don't know if you want to call it masculinity, but a toxicness of like, you know, shut up, no one cares. But we are like, we do care, you know, people do care. And we care because we know what the outcome is. And we've dealt with a shit outcome. And if we can help the next person not have a shit outcome, I want to support that, you know? I am proud and honored that I can actually play a role to help some kid who might not understand yet live a bit better, healthier, happier life. We must, you know? But I don't know, I think there's still a little bit of a stigma around talking about this shit. You know, I guarantee there would be lads listening to this going, bollocks, crack on, you know, have a fucking drink, shut up. Because they've not had a dad that died, maybe, you know what I mean? They've not dealt with the shit that happens about an alcoholic parent. And I don't want to wish that upon anybody, but there's reasons, there's a purpose for why we do what we do. And some people some people do understand it, some people might not, and I can't fault either. But I know that there's a reason that we do what we do, because there's a greater good behind it.
And you think it's harder for men to talk about this stuff then?
I would imagine so. You know, even now, I can speak these stories and stuff that I'm actually somewhat trained to do because I've gone through it so many times in my head. But there's still, you know, I'll tell someone what I think they're my advice, or I'll offer my advice to someone, but I won't go live it myself. You know what I mean? It's like there's still shit that I don't address or face that I know if I probably did, it would probably be great for me or better for me, but at least I've learned enough and understand enough that I can hand down something if people are interested, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. And now you're doing a lot of work as a patron for Nacoa, the charity that supports children of alcoholics. I think you, through your just force of personality, have really helped Nacoa just shoot up there in terms of public awareness. But you're also apparently going to do something quite extraordinary for Nacoa next year.
Yeah.
I think I've signed up for this as well.
Beautiful, mate. Beautiful. You're quiet in the group chat, though. I don't know if anybody said anything to you yet, but we're going, where is Sean? Is he looking at this going, what the hell? I believe you're at the forefront of this thing. I know what you're like. You've done 4 marathons or something, haven't you?
Yeah, I've not. Just explain this mad adventure that we're about to go. Well, we're going to go on next year.
Yeah. Well, you would know firsthand because you've done plenty for Nacoa. Yeah. How many marathons have you run?
I've done 3 and I've lost count of the half marathons.
Beautiful. Incredible work. And I think it's brilliant that everybody that plays a part in this wants to do things like that. Isn't it great though? It's a perfect example that we have this to do, to be able to represent this, you know?
Yeah.
To be able to do something that challenges us, that builds us, but also represents the charity and the purpose behind the charity being the children.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
So, chasing yesterday, it's a challenge of us doing 2 marathons in one day. So, and the reason we're chasing yesterday is because we fly into Western Samoa, we run 1 marathon, and then we take another flight to the other Samoan island, which technically is going back in time because the time difference, to the day before, and run another one. So it's 53 miles, 2 marathons in one day, 2 separate islands going back in time. And the purpose behind it for COAs is the theme of what would you do if you could go back? Yeah. What would you change? What would you say? what is there that you might go back and do different? And I think it's a really, really brilliant idea and concept. I didn't come up with it, someone else did, but I said, sign me up. I've been really blessed to do these challenges for Nacoa over the years, but this one, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a big runner. I'm getting on a bit as well, Jonathan. As you know, I'm not getting any younger, and I'm like, wow, 53 miles in one day, but bring it on. I'm really, really excited. It's a year away, so we have time to train.
We have time to train, but I think we sound balmy signing up for this.
Completely.
We are balmy signing up for this, but
how do you feel about that?
I've got at the moment I'm burying my head in the sand.
Yeah.
But I know I'll at some point I'll engage with it, and I'll be mentally prepared for it. That was the same when I did the London marathons. I just literally went home one day and said I'm going to run a London marathon. Yeah. And everyone was around me was like, what do you mean? You've never run a half marathon?
Yeah.
I was like, don't care. I'm going to run a London marathon.
Yeah.
And I just spent about 3 months training, and I did a London marathon.
Beautiful.
So I know that when I finally engage,
it's go time.
It'll click. But at the moment, I'm just like, I'm just sort of pretending it's not happening. I mean, you also do you organise a lot of sort of football related stuff for the charity as well, don't you? Do you do an event in Manchester? Is it?
That's right. I've got a game called My Tribute Game, and I try to take it to places that had some association with my old band. So we launched at Windsor Park in Belfast. That was our first one. Nacoa were obviously our headline, you know. Then we took it to Shamrock Rovers in Dublin. Then we took it to Bournemouth, where it was a great crowd as well.
Because he was at Bournemouth, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. But I remember they were like, so when I found out he played there, I didn't know much about his time there. And then when I got there, they're like, well, you signed for us, but he didn't show up to any games. I was like, that's even better that he didn't even show up to the game.
Actually play.
I think he played in maybe one or two, signed up for the season, showed up for 2 games, but there's still a big old picture of him out in the background. So it was a great thing. And I think, you know, maybe 7,000-8,000 people came. So it was a beautiful turnout, you know, and it's growing strength by strength. But I love my football. I play a lot of charity games, but this one was dedicated specifically to Nacoa and this kind of accolade to my old man, you know.
And you do the work with, you do the stuff with Dork. Are you the chair of Dork?
Yeah, the chairman of Dorking Wanderers women's football team. Our season starts this month, actually, August 23rd, I believe, and I'm very excited for that. I absolutely love my role there. I've been there this will be my 6th season, and I absolutely love it, you know.
And of course, women's football is becoming
through the roof.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad I got in when I got in, because I've got to see the rise of this thing and learn a lot about it and learn a lot more. And I love to see where it's going. And if I can play any sort of role, just like this, if I can play any sort of role to bring it any value, I'd be happy to do it. You know.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing what you're doing for the charity, and you're channeling your experiences into something so positive. And it'd be really easy for you because you are a celebrity, you're a successful business person. It'd be very easy for you to just say you don't want to touch this. You don't, because somehow you sort of hinted at this a little bit about when you wrote the book, that you get criticism or people say somehow you're disrespecting the memory of George Best.
Yeah.
But actually, what you are doing is the way you are highlighting George Best in such a positive way. You are showing that you loved your father, right?
Yeah.
You know, every anecdote you have told, you've told it with humour, with a smile on your face.
I get that. Yeah.
I mean, you're not. I mean, I'm sure this is it all has a huge emotional impact on you, but the overwhelming sense of pride and love in your father,
good man,
it just comes across so much.
Thank you.
And that is so lovely. That is so amazing.
It's because thank you first and foremost. It's nice to hear someone say that, someone you respect as well, because I respect you a lot, and I knew you were the perfect lead for this role as well. You know, because I knew that you'd be able to ask the right questions and speak about the right things. There's a lot of comfort when people speak with you because you're so good at what you do amongst Nacoa and in your personal and your life as well. Your role, people have been watching on. I've been watching on TV for years. Do what you do, and you're really, really good at it. And I think now you reach a point where you learn how to, in some ways, deliver the message, cope with it yourself. And, you know, and I've learned on a personal level how to speak about my old man, because I have to always, I shouldn't actually say this, but sometimes the picture is bigger because of the impact he made on the world. Yeah. Like, there's such a big fan base of die-hard people that love my dad across the world from different football clubs and all these different things that is important to me, like really important, because it's keeping his legacy alive. And in that moment, or even still today, they love that George Best, and I love that, you know. But I also it will never go away that I personally, with nobody else, none of those fans dealt with something different, you know? Great memories, but also some fucking dark shit that had to do with having an alcoholic parent. So once you learn to manage that to make sure it doesn't affect you, but as we said before, it affected me at that time in my life in that way. And I learned about it and I understood it and I faced it. And then all of a sudden you become, I'm 44 now. I'm not a 26-year-old kid who lost his dad. So you understand it better and you deal with it better. You learn how to deliver the message. So there's, some rawness and truth in it. So people get like, fucking hell, that's serious. But also let's not scare you off. Let's not make you opposed to what we're doing, you know? So that's where I'm at now, man. We still got our demons, we still got our struggles. Of course we do. But this here, specifically Nacoa, is a driving force of my stuff. I absolutely love this role. Yeah. And that's why we take on a challenge like that. Like in my own personal gain, I'm like, yeah, bring on a challenge. Let me go into my pain cave and grow. Yeah. But the bigger picture is, what can we do to raise money, raise awareness, show those kids that although maybe in that moment now they're struggling, they could reach an outcome where they go and accomplish something brilliant, and let's hope that they do. You know?
And I think that you've hit the nail on the head there, because I have huge respect for you, and I really commend the way in which you conduct yourself in this. In this, well, I commend the way you conduct yourself in all fields, but particularly the way you approach this, because all of us who speak about our dads or our mums, we're speaking very personally. Sometimes we feel guilty because, it's a sort of, you should be talking about that. You should keep it in the family. You should keep, it's not for you to tell those stories. We feel all those mix of emotions. You've got that because he's your dad, but you've also got to defend the sort of the burning flame of George Best, because he is an icon to so many, brilliant on the field. He was basically, there'd been famous footballers, but he was the first footballer to become an international style icon. He's the fashion. He actually owned boutiques in Manchester, where people would go and get their 60s and 70s clothes. I think he was talked about as being the fifth Beatle. I mean, he is such an iconic figure. And I always remember that picture of him, or the shot of him pouring the champagne, surrounded by the bunny girls in a Playboy club. That's so, obviously that sticks in my mind because
of your background as well.
Because of my own mum and dad, who worked in the Manchester Playboy club. I think that picture was it was the London Playboy club.
Great shot though, innit? I'm like, yeah, he was living then. He was having a great time, pouring the champagne, girls around. I was like, yeah, go on, Dad. You know. So, and that's why I think so many guys liked him, because he was a man that, although he had the brilliance, he liked to drink, he liked a girl, and everyone was like, oh, we can relate, And I think he liked that, and that's a big part of why. Not just the brilliance of football, it was the whole package, I think. And there was this great shot someone showed me the other day. Well, I've seen many a time, but there's a friend of mine who's doing an art collection based around my dad, and he's theming it with all these different things. Like, there's one shot of like my dad in his in his 70s suit, like looking so cool with a Rolls behind, and it says bestie on the license plate. It's got the Playboy girl there, and then there's a little picture of an actual goat, which means, the greatest of all time. And I'm just like, fucking brilliant that all these years later, my dad played his peak in 1968, died. This year is his 20-year anniversary of being passed. 20 years ago he died. It's crazy to me,
20 years.
I know, isn't that crazy? It doesn't sorry, I swear so much. It doesn't feel like that. But he's doing this art collection, and there's this picture of my dad coming back from Benfica. And back then there was a real straight way, a man playing football. It wasn't, you didn't break the mold. And he's brought a sombrero, you know what I mean? And he's the only guy who's thought, this is a good idea, right? Yeah. Bought a sombrero, put it on. All the other guys dressed to a T, and he's there, his shirt open, a sombrero on. I'm like, what a fucking cool dude. Yeah. Yeah, Bobby Charlton's not doing that. He's really like straight. George, get in line, Oh, it's brilliant. Oh, what brilliant memories. And just a final thought, we've mentioned her. How is your mum? Is she back in England now? Yeah, she lives in Henley. She's cool. We're super close. So many conversations happen about my old man, but she is such a rock to me. She did a great job. I hope she's proud. I'm proud of her. She's a good woman. She's a very good woman. Yeah. Well, I think if your dad was still here, he would be so proud of you for what you've achieved in your own right. Good man. Your own right. And that's really important that you remember that, Calum. Yeah, it's because of your talent, not because you had a famous dad. Yeah. It's because of your talent. You've achieved so much as a TV personality, as a business person, for what you're doing, advocating for some children and people who really need help. I think your dad
would be so, so proud of you.
Thank you, brother.
So
thank you very much. And likewise,
Thank you for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure. One last thing. And sometimes in life, like how I feel about Nacoa and what we do here, hand on my heart, when business, whatever, let's just say business crumbles or you can't work here, you can't work there, there's a thing that I know will always be here that gives me the best of everything, and it is the work we do here, and it's from finding these guys, 16 years ago in Bristol when I was making a documentary, to all these years later, so grateful that I found them, because nothing creates what this creates for me, I love creating a business. I love trying to be successful. I love being able to provide. But at one point I was bankrupt. At one point I was heavy on drugs and drink. This now for the past however many years has been a consistent for me that I'm like, yes, So I'm glad that we're doing this. I'm glad that this charity, Nacoa, keeps evolving and evolving and evolving. I'm grateful we're able to do these crazy 53 miles, two marathons in one day, but we get to go to Samoa and we get to challenge ourselves. It's beautiful. It's brilliant. So I'm really happy to be here. And I loved being interviewed by you today, man. You did a great job. Thank you very much.
Well, let's see if you're happy when you've done those 2 marathons in Samoa.
Hope I finish.
Calum Best, thank you very much, mate.
Pleasure, mate. Pleasure. Hey.